Mikey, thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And also joining us today is Mikey's coach at i2i, Chris Holloway, who is the manager of our Orange team. Chris, thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
My pleasure, mate. Very well, thank you. Looking forward to it.
Keeping busy?
Very busy, very busy. I think people think with the pandemic, everything has stopped and stuff. But if anything, we're kind of trying to do a lot more with the lads as we need to make sure that when we do return, they're all fit, well, ready, mentally and physically.
Yeah, which is very soon, thankfully. Right, so Mikey, just going right back to the very start, you were born in Los Angeles, California, but you've actually got Armenia and Switzerland in your family, haven't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah, my father is full Armenian, and my mom is half Armenian, half Swiss, which is where I get my Swiss passport from, which helps me a lot being here. Don't need a student visa or anything to be here now, which is great. And like you said, yeah, I'm born in Los Angeles, where there is a big Armenian community, especially where I live, Glendale, California, which has one of the largest populations of Armenians outside of Armenia. And I grew up going to Armenian school, I played on Armenian football club. I went to Armenian church, and yeah, I grew up with Armenians.
So you're actually eligible to play for USA, Armenia, and Switzerland. Is that right?
Yes, technically I could. I don't have an Armenian passport. So as of right now, I could play for US, I could play for Switzerland, but
do you know who you'd choose?
Definitely I would go with Armenia first. Definitely go with Armenia first. If I could get to the level of playing for Switzerland's team, I might go for that.
So literally, you say that you live in the suburb in LA, which is full of Armenians. What's that like for you growing up in that kind of environment?
Yeah, I mean, it's been absolutely great growing up with Armenians. Armenians are a very tight community, very united, and we've gone through a lot as a country. And growing up and seeing how all the Armenians stay close together and persevere through all this adversity is really great. And I think it's strengthened us as a group, as a nation, individually.
So you led me brilliantly, to be fair, Mikey. And obviously, we're speaking to your family regularly. Your mom and dad obviously very proud of their background and as well of what you're achieving over here. And obviously, within your close-knit community, they all know and quite enjoy to follow your journey, don't they? I mean, what's that feel like, the support that you get from back home?
Yeah, it's great. I know a lot of people who are supporting me, family, friends, and yeah, it's amazing.
Did I get to watch some of your clips and your highlights and things like that? You know, when the games go live, is your dad pushing that back home as well?
Yeah, my dad loves to put out my highlight clips and any goals I score or anything like that. And yeah, I show whoever I can. I don't like to brag too much or show off anything, but until I've made it somewhere big, I like to stay quiet.
You think you're kind of too humble in a way, Mikey? You're kind of too modest about your own game and performances. Shouldn't you be more kind of boasting about your abilities and your potential?
I've heard that before, but like I said, until I'm not there at the high level, I don't like to talk myself up.
No, that's a very good mindset to have. Very good mindset to have. Just in terms of Armenia, how big a deal is football over there? I mean, is it the #1 sport in the country? Do you know?
Definitely, definitely, yeah. Football is huge in Armenia, and the national team I know is growing very rapidly, and there's some very good talent in Armenia, and it's growing. It's getting bigger. I know the programs are getting more professional. The facilities are getting nicer, and it's a very good growing league and system in Armenia. And I know that in the future, I would love to go over there.
I know you've visited there a few times, Armenia, but to those who haven't been there before, myself and Chris included, what's it like exactly?
Yeah, to be honest, it opened my eyes to what a kind of a developing country. Armenia has been through a lot, both in the last year, in the last century. Armenia has a lot of history. So obviously in this last year, there was a war that took place with Armenia, and unfortunately they were attacked for land that a neighboring country wanted, Azerbaijan. So it's a very rough, it's in a rough shape. There was also an earthquake about 30 years ago, and which really disrupted a lot of infrastructure and lifestyles in Armenia. So it is definitely a developing country, but since I've been there from a kid till now, I've seen a huge growth. I've seen big growth, especially in the capital, Yerevan. And yeah, and I'm excited for the future of Armenia for sure.
So just before you go on, Chris, what kind of challenges have your parents had to face in Armenia? I'm guessing your dad more so.
Yeah, both my parents were not born. My father was born in Los Angeles. My mom was born in Switzerland. My grandparents were also born outside of Armenia. However, they've seen firsthand through their parents what it was like, and yeah, it was a very difficult time for them, and I'm so thankful for my grandparents and obviously my great grandparents for what they've gone through to get me to where I am now. So yeah, and like you were talking about, my father and my mom, they've helped out, and I've always tried to give back and really never forget where we came from. And like we said, I've visited many times. My parents have visited many times, and we always love to go back and you know, help out as much as we can.
Let's just go back a little bit then. So I know a little bit about how you stepped into the i2i academy, but let's strip it back to almost kindergarten with one of your fellow teammates as well. You know, where did the interest in football start, and also how did you get to hear about i2i and then finally make that step across the pond to England?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I played football since I was a really little kid. My dad played for a long time, and I think he's always been very, very passionate about playing, and I think that's what drove me. He'd always push me. He'd always be there at the games on the sideline, cheering me on, pushing me. He coached me for a few years, and as well as my two brothers who I'd play with nonstop. My parents would have to drag us inside from playing outside, and yeah, that it really sparked my passion for it, and I was always working really hard at it. And it got to a point just before high school where I decided, okay, I want to push this further, step into club football in Los Angeles, and that's where I actually met Ruben, who you were talking about, who ultimately brought me into i2i. So I played with Ruben for, I want to say, 2 or 3 years on my club team, and then we actually split off. We both left the club team. I went off to college. Unfortunately, my college team was a poor experience. The coach didn't really like me for some reason or another, but I didn't end up playing with them. And the following summer, me and Ruben were invited back to the club team for a trip to Argentina. And it was a tournament in Argentina, and both me and Ruben came back to this team we hadn't played with for a year or two. And I remember specifically after one of our games, we got back on the bus, and Ruben sat next to me, and out of nowhere, he mentioned an academy in England. He's like, "Hey, would you ever consider going to England and joining an academy?" And at this point, I hadn't played for a year really, and it kind of just hit me, and shocked me a little bit. And but it was a decision I had to. It was an opportunity that I thought about a lot, and it was really, do I want to progress with my football career or just kind of keep it as a hobby? And I think Ruben obviously gave me a very good introduction into what the academy was, and I was fortunate enough to obviously contact i2i and figure everything out within, I think it was about a month and a half before the term started. So and still sometimes I'll realize, whoa, like you're in England, you're playing football in England, what an opportunity. So I'd like to take advantage of every moment I have here, for sure.
Yeah, so when you were deciding to commit to the i2i Soccer Academy, what was the defining factor for you to come study and play over here in England?
That's a tough one. It was such a quick decision for me. Obviously, I found out about the academy very late in the summer. I think the deciding factor was that I was able to really take my game to the next level. And at the end of the day, that was the question. Do I want to pursue this as a career, or is it a hobby of mine? And I think this opportunity really allowed me to go for that career. And obviously with the coaching staff and the system here, with who we play against and the players I'm playing with, it's a phenomenal opportunity for taking it to the next level.
So you arrived basically as quick as you couldn't believe how fast it was. And I remember that day, you know what I mean? We had obviously a big intake of first years at that time. And we were sorting out the squads, and I've been hearing the name Michael Tufenkian quite a bit. So what was your first impressions of England, of York as a city? You know, I only moved up here a couple of years prior to that, really. What's been your impressions of it?
I've loved York so far. Obviously, it's a big difference from coming from LA. LA is such a big city with so much going on, and you have to drive everywhere. And York is such a small town, and I walk everywhere. It's absolutely beautiful here. The weather is a big component for sure. I've had to get used to the weather, but yeah, my first impressions, I came into the academy and I knew nobody. Ruben was not here yet. He wasn't here for the first, I think, month or so. So I did my first training session, I believe with the yellow team at the time. And then the second day I joined you and the orange team for a training session. And I remember it was either that second or third day where you came up to me and asked me if I would like to be your captain for the team. And I think you kind of helping me through those first few days, few weeks, really helped me settle in.
And just in terms of the level of coaching then, Mikey, I mean, I know your coach is sitting right there, so no pressure, yeah. But what was I know you mentioned your first impressions, but what was your first impression of the standard of coaching and training? Again, no pressure.
Yeah. It's absolutely great. It is so much, how do I say this? It is so hard to find coaches who care about a team so much, if that makes sense, because there's one thing to just get results, and there's another thing to develop a team and bring people together. And I think Coach Chris has done that extremely well, better than any other team in the academy. Our team has stayed close together. We haven't really moved people around through the different teams in the academy, unlike some of the other teams. And yeah, I think it's the bond that he creates. Obviously, the training sessions are amazing, and but I think the biggest takeaway is the bond that he created. He made everyone feel very comfortable and wants everyone to play their style game while bringing everyone together. And it's been an absolutely great experience playing for Coach Chris and Nelly.
Were you shocked at the kind of the standard of training when you first came in compared to what you've been used to back in the States?
To a certain extent, yes, it was a shock. Also, like I said, I was coming off of not playing for a year. So it was all kind of rusty for me the first few weeks. But I got used to the level really quick. And I think the second year in the academy was really whenever we upped the level. Our first year we played in a league and we were undefeated in that league. Our second year we got bumped up. I believe it was 2 leagues, 2 levels, uh, and yeah, the level definitely was a lot higher. And we pushed through. We were hoping to just hold on the bottom end, but we really pushed through and gave a good fight to all the teams and ended up close to the top of the table. Although we never finished the season because of COVID and the shutdown and all that, unfortunately.
Yeah, so let's talk about your team a little bit more, the Orange team. So you're in your third year currently playing for them now. How much do you enjoy playing with them?
Yeah, I enjoyed a lot. I think, like I was saying, the bond that you create, you really want to go out there and play for each other, instead of just going and trying to showcase myself, let's say. And like I was talking about, Ruben has been on my team for now 3 years, and I've played with him in the past many years, and yeah, it's an absolute pleasure playing with the Orange team, and I'm excited to get going again.
Yeah, you mentioned it briefly a minute ago, but you seem to be such a close, tight-knit group as well. In fact, our first guest speaker on the podcast, Ian Maddox, who played some games for you last year, he said that the Orange team is probably the closest to the original Red squad back in 2016 in terms of togetherness. What do you kind of put that down to, if you can say that?
I think there's a few things that contribute to that. The most important, I think, like I mentioned earlier, is the coaches who build such a great environment for us to be in, and they encourage us and always bring us together. And I think for us being in our third year and having, I don't know, I want to say about 80% of the same people since the first year, we've learned each other so well, and we've built such a good relationship with each other that, like I said, we always want to go out and put in the shift for each other and go as hard as we can for each other.
I'll take the spotlight off you now, Mike, for a little bit and ask Chris some questions. So Chris, coming to you for a bit now. What made you select Mikey as your captain? You said it was on day 2, was it? I mean, that's a very early decision to make.
Yeah, it was. But as you can sit here today and just listen to him, you know, he has that aura about him where, you know, he's going to lead by example. He's very well educated, been brought up the correct way, and I knew what I was going to get even that early, on and off the field. You know, this is the closest they're going to get to almost being a professional without actually signing that contract. You know, I know many people in the professional game that actually do it the other way around, where they train every morning and study, do something in the afternoon, thinking about the end of the career and stuff. So these boys are doing it the other way, and I wanted somebody that would, like I said, lead by example, but also command the room as well as commanding the pitch. And Mikey does that in abundance. You know, he gives everything every single training session. He's always on time. You know, we kind of put Mikey in sometimes awkward situations, if we need to bring some of the lads in line and stuff, and he's never once shied away from it. And that takes a certain type of person. Now, if I'm being perfectly honest, the rest of the lads, as Mikey said, has almost been right there behind him. He hasn't really needed to do too much on that, but he's a credit to his family. He's a credit to the rest of the team, and he certainly is a credit to myself and Nelly.
I just can't believe you didn't choose Woody as your captain.
I think the way he's going, he's going to be vice captain, just for the comedy value.
You've actually progressed, Mikey, from centre back to central midfield, or especially in kind of the past few games that I've seen. Is that to develop his versatility, or just that you felt he suited it better moving forward?
It's something we spoke about probably the back end of the first year. There's a lot more to Mikey's game, and to be fair, he can change the play from the defensive line. But we wanted to get him further up the pitch. I believe he can be a goal threat, and he's just his range of passing. He's phenomenal. He loves to get into a challenge as well, so we can win a lot more percentage of the first balls in there. We haven't really been able to get a full string of games with him in there because of injuries, and then obviously COVID hit. But it was something that, like I said, we spoke about previously. But one or two little injuries to defensive players meant that he had to keep sitting back in there and covering in. But he's so versatile. He's so versatile, and he can play in a 3, he can play in a 4, he can play in a 2 in the middle, 3 in the middle. And towards the back end of last season, he started to get amongst the goals as well.
Mikey, I suppose I should ask you the same question. Are you wanting to play midfield moving forward? Do you enjoy it more?
I do enjoy it more. I can definitely be a lot more creative, take on more risk. Sitting in the back, I really cannot do anything fancy, or that's a very dangerous move. But as a kid, I actually played striker for a while. I played center mid for a while, and it was only until I think it was my second year of high school that I really started playing center back. So I've had the experience all around the pitch, and I think center mid, defensive mid is my preference. Yeah.
I know it's a little awkward as he's with us, but give us a little bit more insight in terms of what Coach Chris is like as a coach, and it feels to you like he's a little bit more than that.
Yeah. He's always very hard on us to play well and play at our best, because he knows we can play at a very high level together. But at the same time, he's very relaxed with us. He's almost like another teammate of ours, cracking jokes and very playful. And the trainings are always very, very fun with Coach Chris. So he's absolutely great to play with. Absolutely.
If you look back at last season, Mikey, we kind of, like you said, the first few games we lost the first few, by a decent margin. And then obviously we started to kick on and stuff. And then you picked up a couple of injuries along the way. And we've always said that's the experience. That's part and parcel of the game and stuff like that. And we've tried with different situations, Zoom calls and stuff with professionals to talk about how you deal with that. What was it like dealing with it? And also, how did it feel when, at certain parts of the game, you watch your teammates struggling? They have to, dig deep, and luckily we got the right results. We went on that long run. But what was it like for you mentally and psychologically that, you found yourself watching on the sideline?
Yeah, it gets tough. It can definitely get tough being injured. I injured myself twice, my ankle, in about a 1.5 year span. I was out for, I think it was about 5 months or so. And I think the biggest takeaway from it is that I've learned how to heal myself. I've gone through the process twice now. I had two separate incidences where I injured myself. So I think really learning how to care for the ankle, and I've obviously done a bunch of rehab and physical therapy, and knowing what exercises to do, knowing when to do them, how often, how to stretch, get the mobility back. And but yeah, I think mentally it is tough sitting on the sideline and wanting to, mentally ready to be on the pitch, but physically unable. It's tough, but at the end of the day, it's shown me over and over again that as soon as you get through it, it is so worth it to be back on the pitch, and just to not lose hope over over a couple weeks or a month or so, or whatever it is that getting back on the pitch is always worth it.
Yeah, sticking with the psychological and mental side of things, you're obviously 1,000 miles away from your family here in England. I guess firstly, do you get homesick, and if so, how do you deal with being away from them?
Yeah, I think more so my first year. I think I'm used to being away for so long now. Obviously, I still communicate with them multiple times a week, and I'm calling them. I'll take videos, send it to them. They'll do the same with me, and it's that it could definitely be tough. And I've actually talked to a lot of incoming players and about this. And at the end of the day, at least for me, the biggest thing that got me through it was being on the pitch almost every day. And knowing that even though sometimes you're sitting in your room and there's no one here, or your family's away or whatever, is that you could still get on the pitch and do what you love. And at the end of the day, that reason only makes it worth it to me. And you learn to be away from home, and it also makes it nicer. It makes it nicer whenever you go and visit.
We've touched, like Jay's just done there, and you mentioned your family. I know personally from meeting your family, going out for a coffee and a bite to eat with the family and stuff, the closeness, and you touched on that before. How big of an impact does your family have on where you are today?
Yeah, massive. They've supported me in any decision I've made. Obviously, moving to England is a big one. And yeah, they've been there for me. Anything I needed, they've always been there and helped as much as they could. So yeah, definitely. I mean, I owe them everything. Without them, I'd be nowhere near where I am today. So they're massive for me.
And people outside of probably the Orange Squad and that, obviously your parents own a fantastic art gallery back in LA. Is that something when you go home, do they get you working in there? Do they get you paying your dues back in there?
I do, yeah. Every now and then I'll go and I'm pretty decent with the camera, so I'll go and I'll be their photographer and help them with their website and all the tech related stuff. So, but yeah, I mean it's amazing being a part of that and seeing that grow from nothing really. So.
So we know now, and Jay knows, and Nate will know as well, the analysis, that if we ever need anybody with a camera, Jay knows you're the man, and Nate knows you're the man.
Yes.
So, may when we do return, then I may have to start you on, maybe just drop you from the squad so you can do a bit of filming. Is that right? So keeping with your family. Obviously, your brother was over here pre last lockdown. And I had the pleasure of meeting your brother a couple of times. What was that like having him over here, and what was his thoughts of England as well? And is he planning a return when he's allowed to?
Yes, he is planning a return. I mean, it was great having him here, and obviously he's going to come back. But and I want my little brother to come out too. My older brother's been here now, and yeah, it's great showing him around. And obviously I've been here. This is my third year in York, so I know the city pretty well. And just showing him around, and obviously having someone here with me after training and someone to talk to and be with is great. So yeah, I'm excited for him to come back, and hopefully my little brother can come out. He's in high school. He's busy with his school stuff.
So did you used to come back from training to a full cooked meal after ready for prepare? Is that what it was?
Sometimes I like to, yes.
Mikey, we know you're very passionate about Armenia. I presume it's still your ambition to represent your country at the highest level, and have you heard anything from them at all?
Yeah, definitely is one of my ambitions. I have been in contact with a few of the scouts, and I initially was planning a visit. However, unfortunately, due to COVID, got canceled. But definitely in the upcoming months or a year, as soon as we can really, I'd love to get out there and at least get on a tryout or something. And um, absolutely getting on that team is one of my goals for sure.
And I'm guessing you believe in your own ability, and you believe you can do it one day.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We've actually got a female player coming onto our program this September from Armenia called Tuveen, who I believe you know.
Yes, I do. Yeah, she's currently on the Armenian national team, the women's team. And yeah, she was telling me she was considering i2i, and I helped her, get information about it and everything. And it's always exciting having another Armenian out here. Ejmin Ohanyan also came out here. He came here last year. So now 3 Armenians in the academy, and it's great. It's great having them here for sure.
So Tuveen, is representing her country at, what is she, 17, 18? That's pretty special.
Yeah, it is. She's just graduating high school, and in fact, she went to the same high school I did back in LA. Funny enough. So yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity for her, and I know a few other girls on the team as well. And yeah, it's a great thing, and I'm hoping to soon be over there and do the same that they're doing. So.
Mike, you spoke so fondly about the program throughout this podcast, which is great to hear. For anyone that's listening that may be considering joining i2i, what advice would you say to them?
It's a lot of work. It's hard work. But if you're truly passionate about it enough, and you want to if you want to take your football to the next level and potentially try to make a career out of it, then this is the place for you, for sure.
For any young student athletes that are either coming over on taster trips or even the first years, kind of they need to try and tap in to people like Mikey, because they've been there, they're doing it, they've had the injuries, they've had the experience of the losses, they've had the experience of 3 games a week, they've had the experience of coming from a hot country to a unpredictable one, shall we say. And I think it's, as you've heard there, he kind of, he'll say it how it is. But the passion's there, and I honestly believe if he keeps going this way, then we will have the pleasure of seeing Mikey play at a nice high level.
Mikey, just one more question from me. Which of your Orange team do you want to see on the podcast one day?
I want to see everyone on the podcast.
Not Woody. Woody will have to be an X-rated podcast.
That would be a very funny podcast. I'd love to hear that one. I would like to see Ruben and hear his experience, because of how much he's shared with me, and he kind of brought me into this program, and he's the one who sparked my passion for taking my game international. So and I know he's played in multiple different countries. He's played in Mexico, he's played in the US, and yeah, Ruben, it's your turn.
You heard it here first, Ruben. You're next. Well, Mikey, thank you very much for joining us on the i2i podcast. Another fascinating listen. Chris, thank you also. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I loved it, mate. Thank you very much for having me, and thanks, Mikey.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Jay.
You're very welcome. And that will do it for this episode.